Hello and welcome to Mac Power Users. My name is Stephen Hackett. I'm joined by the man of the hour, Mr. David Sparks. How are you?
Hello, Steven. How are you today, buddy?
I'm good. I am good. There's a new field guide. We're going to talk all about that. Very excited to hear about that. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been a journey. It always is, but feels good. We're actually recording this the day of launch, and it feels really good to wake up today and have this thing in the world.
Yeah, that's great. Before we dive into it, we got a little housekeeping.
Okay, well, the first thing is I have a new field guide. It's the Apple Productivity Suite field guide. It focuses on notes, reminders, freeform, and calendar. And we've been talking on the show for years how Apple has taken these apps from kind of joke status to real status. And I thought it was time to give it the old field guide treatment. And we'll get into it in the show, but I've been putting a lot of time into them. I think it's really great. And there is a launch discount for the Mac Power Users audience. MPU launch, MPULAUNCH gets you 10% off for a limited time. We'll put a link in the notes. You can go check it out.
Yeah, please do. I've been through it and it's incredible as always. And on More Power Users, we're going to talk about some of the behind the scenes, the creation of the field guide. What do you do when all the OSs look differently all of a sudden? All that stuff we're going to be talking about for members. So if you love MPU and you want to hear more of the show with no ads, check out the link in the show notes to join More Power Users.
Yeah, I have really evolved the process over the last few years, and it's probably not that interesting to everybody. But if you want to get the details and More Power Users, we're going to dig it deep on that.
Yeah, I love it. It's such a big project, I know. So the Apple Productivity Suite field guide, you've got two versions, Pro and Essentials. You've done this now several times, kind of two different versions. What are the differences here, and where should people look?
Yeah, so the course itself is nearly 100 videos. It alters because I combined some of them at the last minute, but it's just under 100 videos. About 5 hours worth of content, and like I said earlier, it covers calendar, reminders, notes, and freeform, and it digs really deep on them, covering all the details. Now, the Essentials version of the course, which is $49 before discount, gets you all that. So if you just want to get the material, you can buy the Essentials version. The Pro version is going to also include a 6-hour webinar series. And those are really fun. I've been doing those with some of the field guides in the past, not all of them. Like I didn't do one with Alfred because I don't think it really made a lot of sense for Alfred, but there's a lot to cover here. And so I'll be giving additional presentations on how to use more power features out of it. I'll be answering questions. They're interactive. And I've really come to enjoy those webinar series. But if you want to get that, it's $99 before discount.
Awesome.
Where you get the whole course, plus you get the webinar series. Webinar series is going to start in November, and can't wait to get started. Actually, I was working on it this morning.
Yeah, that's great. I think that those extra sessions are really valuable. I would definitely encourage people to check that version out. So you said calendar, reminders, notes, and freeform, and these are apps that we have talked about quite a bit over the last couple of years on MPU. But why these apps and why now? I mean, these apps have been around for a while. You do a lot of field guides on sort of power user level apps, right? OmniFocus, Alfred, and others. But why these built-in apps? And why did you think now was the time?
Well, I mean, I felt like for the longest time they were unusable. I mean, remember when Notes had marker felt and used I think it was a mail protocol for syncing, and it's like, for the longest time, I think Apple just didn't take these apps seriously. And that's not true anymore. I mean, they fixed Notes and then they just gradually improved it over the years. Reminders really became kind of a force. And increasingly, I saw that there's a lot of people out there that don't want to spend a bunch of money on apps. And now Apple's applications are becoming a real force. Like, a good example is task management. Like, I famously am a fan of OmniFocus. It is an app that goes to like a, level 10, Reminders, I would argue, goes to level 7 or 8 now. They've really kind of brought it up. There's still some features missing that OmniFocus doesn't have, but Reminders lapse a lot of the task management apps that you can buy today. And frankly, a lot of people don't need a level 10 task manager. In fact, most people don't. And Reminders is pretty and it looks good and it syncs reliably and it's got great Siri integration. It's like there are some things about it that are just top tier. And when you start digging into all these apps, Notes, Freeform, Calendar, they've all got features like that. And I think for most people, if you just master that built-in set, you're good. And that's a new thing. So I've been playing with them increasingly. I kept kind of bouncing off them every year as we looked at the new features after WWDC. And last year, I'm like, these are good enough now to get a field guide because I think they're really usable for people. And I went all in December last year and just moved everything into these apps and started using them and taking notes. And, it's a 9-month process that led to the field guide.
I think one thing that is really important when we consider these apps is that they are apps, but also services, right? And this is a line, I was really thinking about this when watching the field guide and the section is talking about iCloud Sync. Apple's goal is that you don't really think about how stuff gets synced, right? It just happens. And I think for the most part, it's really, really good now. I mean, iCloud was rough in the beginning, but look, that was 10 years ago, right? That was even longer. And it's just an old take that iCloud is bad and Apple is bad at services and syncing. iCloud for me has been rock solid in these apps forever. And I think that sort of fear that some people have, I really think it's time that we move past that.
Yeah. Well, it's like when I teach DevonThink, syncing in DevonThink is very powerful and they give you a lot of options and a lot of ways to track it and different syncing platforms. So teaching that takes a lot of effort. With these apps, you just turn on iCloud. Really, that's it. But like I said, I use these things for 9 months. I never lost any data the whole time. I mean, they just worked. And that's just one more reason why these apps have matured to a level that I just think, there are a lot of people out there, a lot of power users that are going to be just fine with these apps.
100%. I mean, someone like you or me being able to use these apps full time is really a testament to how far they've come, right? You mentioned Notes syncing with like an IMAP folder. It was garbage. The first versions of Notes were really bad. And then at some point, Apple began to take it seriously. And I basically run my personal life out of Apple Notes. I have some other apps for like different parts of my work. Like you and I use Notion. Sort of Relay administration is Google, the Google Suite, Docs, and Sheets. But I've got 600 notes. I've got a whole folder, probably have 100 of those shared with my wife. And I use it every single day. And if you or I or some of our listeners can do that, then anyone can. Really the days of, someone coming to you and be like, what note app should I use? What task app should I use? You used to have to quiz them. Like, well, what do you need? What do you prioritize? And honestly, my answer to 9 people out of 10 now is like, start with the Apple stuff and chances are you won't ever need to graduate past it.
Yeah. And, it used to be when we first started making Mac Power Users, there was only 1 or 2 candidates in each one of these categories that was at all worth anything. And they were not the Apple apps. But, the software, the lowest common denominator has risen so high. And these Apple apps, I think, make it really tough to justify kind of middle of the road purchased apps. I think it's really tough for developers that aren't going to make a really high end application, productivity application, because the free stuff from Apple is so good, and they've got some built-in benefits. The iCloud sync is always good. The Siri integration is always good. Apple has, it's the platform developer, so of course they're going to have some features in there that are going to be hard to match.
Another thing you talk about there, and it's definitely core to Apple's philosophy, is their stance on privacy, right? Where this stuff is encrypted You can set it up where it's not even accessible from iCloud.com. You have things like advanced data protection and stolen device protection. And you can layer these things on top where, I do feel comfortable running my life out of Apple Notes. I can feel okay with having all my tasks and reminders because I trust Apple's stance on these things, and they work really hard, even with the Apple Intelligence stuff, which you have sections on in the field guide. That's all on device, right? It's not sending my private to-do list to the cloud to categorize it. It's happening there on my Mac, and that's something I really value.
Yeah, and that kind of is part and parcel with Apple. I don't think there's really any other company that can say that as well as Apple does, because Apple makes their money selling you an iPhone. They don't need to sell your data or treat you as a marketing component. And I think that runs really deep. I mean, over the years, I've spent a lot of time talking to people at Apple, and it's always impressive to me how much the rank and file Apple employees are interested in privacy. I remember talking to an Apple employee a few years ago who was talking to me about how many times the government had issued subpoenas, and they don't want to be the arbiter of your data. They just want to sell you the hardware and let you do your thing, which is kind of very ingrained in the Apple ethos.
100%. And sometimes it does mean they move more slowly than other companies, but it makes them move more deliberately, which is more important to a lot of us.
Yeah, and with these apps, this is a good embodiment of that principle. Like, there are going to be productivity apps that are more powerful than these, but I call it in the course like the Swiss Army knife effect. These apps are so solid, they're so integrated, and when you combine them together, they become kind of a force of their own that really makes it worth considering as your productivity system.
Another sort of meta conversation about these apps is compatibility and sharing, working with others. And, I think Calendar out of this list is sort of the most open, right? You show that you can plug Google calendars in, Exchange calendars, right? I have a bunch of different types of calendars set up in there. It's also the oldest of these apps by like a decade or more. Yeah. I mean, iCal goes way back to like macOS 10.2, I think, a long time ago. But with sharing and with collaboration in iCloud, it's also very easy to share reminders lists, share a single note, or like Mary and I do, we have a whole folder of notes. That folder is shared, and anything either of us put in there, the other one automatically gets. You're not really siloed off in these apps, really in any way.
Well, you are and you aren't. I think that's kind of a double-edged sword. The Apple integration is excellent. Like, share a reminders list or a note or a calendar event or a freeform board. All of that stuff is super possible if you just stay within Apple's ecosystem. At the same time, it's not like a Markdown notes app where you just got a folder full of Markdown files like Obsidian or Noteplan or some of the other apps we've covered.
Sure.
The Apple Notes database is it's essentially a zip file with a lot of stuff going on. Now, you can get to that with a little work, and there are some third-party apps that kind of like play cat and mouse with Apple on this, but it's not particularly open in that sense. Same thing with like the reminders database. You can plug into that through third-party apps. We've talked about some of them on the show over the years. Calendar is by far the most accessible, but if you stay within the Apple ecosystem, if you're willing to just say, okay, I'm staying in this what they call it, the rose garden, right? If you stay here, the integration and sharing is excellent, but you do have to kind of stay within their system.
This episode of Mac Power Users is brought to you by our friends over at 1Password. You can learn more by going to onepassword.com/MPU, but I want to talk a little bit about how I use it at home. I use 1Password for families, which I actually get through Relay's business account, which is really cool. And we recently added one of our teenagers to our 1Password setup. So she has access to her own vault. I don't need all her passwords. But we now also have access to shared passwords and a shared family vault. And this has been really great because she is in high school and is doing things like having her own bank account and doing a bunch of new stuff. And it's really been good for her to learn about password management and safety, but it's also great for us because we can help her in that progress and as in that process as she becomes more and more independent with her technology. You may have seen in recent months that two major tech players, Dropbox and Microsoft, have discontinued their built-in password manager features. There's a blog post over at 1Password talking about this and how you can migrate into 1Password. And look, this is because these other companies, password management is a side thing. It's a side project. 1Password, it's what they're all about. That makes me feel really comfortable. And look, I've used 1Password for years and years before I joined Mac Power Users, years and years before I was reading ads for them. I really do use it at work and at home, and you should too. So go to onepassword.com/MPU to learn more, and you'll see a 30-day free trial there. When you sign up, you'll get 20% off onepassword.com/MPU. Let's start with the oldest of these apps, Calendar. One thing you spent quite a bit of time on, and obviously a feature that I don't use a lot in Calendar, is the natural language input. So you can just type and have your event kind of built for you automatically. And in playing with it, going through the guide, that's come a long way.
Yeah, everybody thinks Fantastical is like the only game in town for this, and to be honest, they were the first game in town on this, and they probably continue to be the most powerful with this. But the Apple stuff, where you can just type in and have an event created, is much better than it used to be. I mean, in the old days, this is a good example. Anytime you wanted to create a new calendar event, you always felt like you were mousing and checking boxes, and it just took a lot of friction to create a new calendar event. And that's not really the case anymore with Calendar.
Yeah, you can definitely still go in there and like do the check boxes, do the drop downs, right? That's all still there. But it really makes it great to quickly dash something off. And most of my events, I'm not setting up like a weird repeat schedule. I can just, hey, I'm having breakfast with David at 8 a.m. and it just goes right in.
Yeah. And that kind of just gets back to the point for most of us. That's enough, right? You set it up, it works. And the repeat formulas have become sophisticated enough that they solve most people's problems. And, another thing that I kind of discovered in using Calendar is I really like the user interface. I think it's really come a long way. Even the iOS kind of 26 or Mac OS 26 view of it, I think Calendars is a pretty app again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would really recommend people try the different view settings. Like, I know my wife really likes the list view, but only on the iPhone because it's sort of the densest thing.
Yeah.
And even on the Apple Watch, right, you have those different views. It gives you lots of ways to see things. I'm kind of a week view guy, but sometimes I do need to zoom out to a whole month and kind of get the bigger picture. And it's all very fluid and very smooth to change between those things.
Yeah. And like talking of the week view, I think I cover the widgets in the course. The calendar widgets are really solid. And, this is another one where they kind of have the home court advantage in that the calendar widget is always up to date, always like right on. And they have a week view widget in the large widgets. Like I have it on my widget screen on my Mac, and it shows the next 4 days in a week view. I don't know if you've played with that widget, but it's really nice. And there's just a lot going for this app.
Absolutely. A huge thing in our household is calendar sharing. My wife and I both use iCloud for our calendars. My work ones are all like scattered across a bunch of Google accounts.
Yeah.
But it's really straightforward to set up a calendar to share it. And as the kids have gotten older, now our two oldest, they can see like the family calendar. They can't edit it yet, but they also have their own where they can edit. Like the control you have over it is really pretty straightforward and easy to understand. But it also gets in the weeds, right? Like if you're using Google or Exchange and you have calendar delegates and some of those more sort of esoteric settings, it also supports all that stuff.
Yeah, and they've done a good job over the years of keeping it current with other calendar protocols. For instance, Apple Mail and Gmail always seem like they're at a little bit of a tension between them. Like they don't quite work because the way Gmail's engineered is different than the way Apple Mail thinks about mail. With Calendar, that's not the case. Like I run iCloud accounts, I run Gmail accounts, I run Fastmail accounts, calendar accounts. All of them, they just work, and that's really no problem with the calendar app.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I covered in the course, because I'm a big fan of time blocking and just like really using the calendar as a tool to manage your day, is they've gotten really good over the years about letting you easily like duplicate events or copy events or move events around. So like you open the calendar app, you can do pretty quick calendar management and blocking right in the native calendar app. And it's just not really a problem anymore. And that wasn't always true.
Yeah, it used to be trying to duplicate an event. You either had to jump through hoops or it just wasn't available. And even on the iPhone, you can press and hold and hit duplicate. And when you go to create a new event, it's pre-filled with all the stuff. It's great. It's definitely something I use. I'm not quite the time blocker that you are, but if I have, especially with the kids, like they're not regular enough to be a repeating event, but something that's going to happen often. It's great just to copy it and then paste it on the other days that it's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, integrated throughout all the platforms. Like Mary, I really like the list view on the calendar app on the iPhone. I think that's kind of the best way to see it. But on the other platforms, you use entirely different views. And all that stuff is respected with the system. Whatever you set up, you're going to be good. The shortcut support has really grown over the years too in all these apps, but calendar as well. So you can set up some really interesting automations without very much effort. I cover that as well. So I've got a video showing how to do various calendar automations with shortcuts. It's just, I really try to cover the app soup to nuts with respect to all four of these.
Okay, so let's talk about Notes. We made fun of it, the early versions of it. But man, it's really gotten good. And with Calendar, we started with natural language input. But Notes sort of has an interesting equivalent in the Quick Note feature. Can you walk us through this? Because it shows itself. It shows up in different ways on different platforms.
Yeah, it just depends on which platform you're on. But one of the problems that we all encounter with these digital devices is, hey, how do I jot down a quick note? Like Stephen and I are standing in a hallway and you say, oh yeah, make sure to call me about this or that. And I want to write something down. And so the answer that Apple had is the quick note feature. And this is that's a principle that is applied across all platforms. So it depends on which platform you're on. Like one of the best ways to use it on the phone, I think, is just to put it under Control Center. You can get a quick button. You pop it open. If you're on the iPad, you can make it so you swipe up from the lower right corner, or you can even have when the iPad's turned off, you tap the screen with a pencil, it jumps to the quick note. And I cover all this stuff in the videos, but you can really customize that quick note feature, which I think a lot of people don't do. And as a result, you're like, well, I also need to, carry a notebook or what, everybody's got kind of things they do to get that quick note feature, but it's really built in. It's also the same thing on the Mac. And another piece of it, because it's all integrated with the system, is you can take quick notes out of context. So if you're on a website you want to come back and read and do some work on, you can run a quick note from the share button out of your Safari browser. And it's going to not only allow you to create the note, it's going to create a link back to that page you were on. Or, it's a really nice system that I don't think really gets as much attention as it deserves, because it gives you a kind of a hyperlinked system, let's say hyperlinked light system that allows you to get back to key bits of data or just capture something quickly. And one of the things I think anybody who wants to use Notes should do is number one, just figure out how that works and configure it to work for you. Like whichever platform you're on, they've got different options for you because of the way, all of this technologies have populated across the platforms. Like when I was talking earlier about, you can run out of Control Center on your phone. You could do that in your iPad too, or your Mac. It's up to you. But just figure out the pieces of it and then get yourself set up with a quick note system.
Yeah, I think it's great. It's something that I didn't use a lot of, but then it sort of clicked for me, especially on the iPhone. Just like a quick way to save something. They get their own little place in the Apple Notes UI, so you can get back to them. I think it's definitely worth exploring if you haven't spent time with the Quick Note feature.
I remember years ago, I was at WWDC the first year Apple Notes started to get good. And the question we were all asking ourselves is like, is this a one and done thing? Did they just like add some features and like change the database model? And are they going to now ignore it for the next 10 years? Or is this like a real project? And clearly, it got better every year after that. It continues to improve each year with friction points getting sanded down. And I think this app is the poster child for kind of the Apple productivity, revival that we've had, because this one has come the furthest.
Yeah, I think so too. One thing they focused on in adding things is structure. So you can do folders and subfolders, but you can also do things like tags and pinned notes. What of those do you use personally out of sort of those organizational tools?
Yeah, I cover them all in the course, but and what I would say is that they cover all the bases here. Like if you want a tag system, you can set one up, or however you want to set your organization for your folders. And I think part of it depends on how big your system is. When I was working on the course, I initially set up a very intricate tagging system. So I would have like big generic tags like MacSparky and personal, but I would also have like working tags and, kind of like approach I would take towards a task manager of having this real integrated tasks and tag system. But I found that it was more trouble than it was worth for me. And ultimately, I kind of resorted to just a hierarchical folder system, because the way I do notes, that's good enough. But to add tags to your notes, all you have to do is put a hash and the name of the tag at the bottom of the note, or frankly, anywhere in the note, and you've got a tag. So there's not that much friction to putting them in, but I just didn't find that doing that gave me a whole lot of benefit back. So it was more trouble than it was worth. I do use some tags for like status type things that I want to surface quickly, but I no longer like tag everything like I had initially planned on doing.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just, nested folders, and, they're the obvious ones. Like you've got personal, and then I've got MacSparky, and under that I've got subfolders. One of the nice features of this app that not all notes folders have, or notes apps have, is you can nest folders within folders, which allows you to really get structure to it if you want. But I would recommend that, don't make too deep of a structure. I think that's an easy trap to fall down. The goal is a light structure, and you don't want folders with just one or two notes in them. That's a bad sign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the way I do mine, I'm all folders. I'm not really a tagger in any system, but the top level folders are areas of responsibility. So home, relay, cross forward, and then within there are sort of subfolders based on things within that area. So within relay, I've got one for like podcasts, one for relay admin, and one for the St. Jude campaign. And that I found is a good balance for me, and lets me kind of focus. Like if I'm at work, I can just hit the little disclosure triangle on the personal ones, and all those folders kind of come out of view. But I'm also a big believer in smart folders in Apple Notes. I have the one I use the most often is recently edited. And so it's a smart folder that I set up for any note I've edited in the last 10 days. And then I have it sorted by the last edit date. And I have found that really helpful if I'm working on something ongoing. I can just get back to it really quickly, because then I don't have to go through my folder structure and find it. I know if I've touched that note in the last, week and a half, that it'll be there for me waiting. And really most of the time when I'm interacting with notes sort of on a regular workday, I'm in the recently edited smart folder, and then I get into, sort of the weeds from there. And there's lots of ways you can build out your smart folders and notes now.
Yeah, like I have one called MacSparky Bench, and I like the idea of a workbench. It's a romantic notion for me because I have a workbench, but I tag things that I'm working on and are really important right now as a bench, just hashtag BENCH, and that surfaces in a smart folder. I also use time-based smart folders. There's also completely different structures available. Tiago Forte, who wrote the Second Brain book, we had him on the Focus podcast a few years ago. He uses and kind of sells this system he calls PARA, where it's Project Area Resources and Archive.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not built by discipline or area of your life, but it's everything. Like all your projects, personal and professional, go into the project folder. And that way you just see what's active right now. And a lot of people really love that. I played with that, but I actually prefer to keep them separate by discipline. And that's the thing here. This application will adapt to whatever system you want.
Yeah.
Mine is folders with light tags. Yours is just folders. And, depending on how you want to organize those folders, it's fine. You can have multiple layers of folders nested with each other, or just one or two. And it's going to do the job. I guess that's the point of it, right? If you need a notes tracking application and you're already in on the Apple ecosystem, there's a lot to this one. And that doesn't even really cover some of the stuff it does particularly well. Like we now have the ability to have it, record your voice and do dictation in it.
Mm-hmm.
It has a document scanner built in, so you can just point it at an invoice. Like I got my my property tax bill, and I just pointed at it in an Apple Note. Now, when I need to pay that bill in a few months, I've got it there. Or, they've got the ability to handwrite on a note. So if you're an Apple Pencil and iPad guy, you can handwrite in the note, and it's just going to integrate that seamlessly. It really is a multimedia note-taking, application. Not to mention that, and I didn't even mention this, is anything that you can copy into a file, like Notes is the app I always use to test linking, like dragging a PDF in, dragging a URL link in, dragging a calendar, whatever it is you want to see if Apple is supporting it. Notes is kind of the lingua franca of this. So you can copy just about anything into an Apple Note and it'll hold on to it for you, which is why you and I always recommend using Notes when you're traveling. You make a note with your travel. You can put your PDF tickets, the links to your hotel, all that stuff just goes into a note. It's very accessible.
Yeah, and it's all synced. It's all saved offline, which a lot of these apps don't do or don't do by default. But yeah, the multimedia thing is huge for me. I was just a markdown only purist in Notes for a long time. And then I had the realization like, no, I need PDFs. I need images. I want those things together. And the way Notes does PDF now, I find particularly powerful. You can drag a PDF in there and it's multi-page. You can set the size, small, medium, large. And you can actually scroll through the pages of the PDF in Apple Notes. And then, of course, you can open it and use markup and those other tools. But the integration of text and media, drawings, if you're on an iPad, like all that stuff comes together to form a single note with all these different pieces of information. And I don't know the exact percentage, but a large number of my notes have some sort of attachment in them to get back to, whether it's a photo of something I took at a store or a table or something beyond just text. And it does it that better than I think almost anything I've tried.
And I think an add-on effect with the multimedia is the sharing. I mean, we've talked about it already, but just as an example, my wife and I were out of town and the dog got sick and my daughter had to take the dog to the vet. And I just went in my Apple Notes and I've got a single note that has like everything for the dog. It has the food she eats. It has the records from the tests, at the vet. It has the vet records, because the dog's got a couple things that ongoing treatment on. It's got a list of, just everything that, even like when we bought the dog, it's got the name of the person we bought the dog from. So everything is there. So all I did was just hit the sharing button, add my daughter to the note, And then she was able to go to the vet and she had everything she needed. And that, I don't know that there's another app that I could have done it that easily with.
I think you're absolutely spot on there.
Another piece of Apple Notes that I really had fun exploring with this field guide is linking. Now, look, we've done shows on Obsidian. I really love the bilateral linking that Obsidian does. Very powerful application. Apple has a kind of slimmed down version of this, but it's still quite powerful. You can easily create like a table of contents note linking out to other notes and have those notes link back to this note. And the link backs aren't automatic, but the direct links do work and they're easy to create. And if you want to set a system up like that, but still have all the multimedia and sharing and everything you get with Apple Notes, that's now available to you.
What about the shortcuts support for notes? We talked about it some in Calendar in terms of event creation and management. What does that look like for notes?
It was bad for a long time. And then a couple of years ago, it got really good. There's a long list of actions. So now you can append a note, create a new note, all of the things that you would kind of want to do with basic automation, you can do now. The limitation in my mind, the thing that still needs work is text formatting via shortcuts. It doesn't work good. So like if you want to create a template note and have bold formatting or heading one, it doesn't do that. And I have spent so many hours looking for workarounds to that. And they're all kind of, they just don't, I mean, you can kind of get them to work. There's like a markdown thing where you can have it transfer markdown, but they don't really work. I feel like there's a couple pieces of notes, text formatting that need attention through automation, but for all the basic stuff, it's fine. Like when I create a new, big newsletter, I write those off in Vision Pro, and Apple Notes has an app in Vision Pro. So I have an automation that creates those. And then when I go in Vision Pro, I just open it up there, go to Yosemite and write my newsletter. And it's a good workflow for me. And sadly, nobody else really has a good text editor in Vision Pro because, it's just nobody has a Vision Pro, right? Yeah. Nobody's buying apps. Nobody, that platform, we talked about that recently, but Apple Notes does that for me. So that's like one more case where Apple Notes has kind of bailed me out. This episode of the Mac Power Users is brought to you by Hookmark. Go to hookproductivity.com/MPU because links beat searching. Get 30% off with the code Mac Power Users. Gang, I've talked about the idea of contextual computing and hyperlinking. Hookmark by CogSci Apps brings you just that. Lots of people in the tech community champion the concept of contextual computing. That's when your software workflows let you jump straight to the specific piece of information or task you need, bypassing search and navigation flows that cause distraction. The classic example is email. You should jump to a specific email, not your inbox. But the same thing applies to all of your productivity apps. And Hookmark's developer, CogSci Apps founder, is actually the originator of a manifesto called the Manifesto for Ubiquitous Linking, which you can search to learn more about. Indeed, I was one of the original signers of it because I really believe in this cause. Hookmark is designed specifically to enable contextual computing. With Hookmark, you can create links not only to the current web page, but to the current file, email, task, or other item in any link-friendly app. Just bring up Hookmark and copy links to see what's hooked. This gets you bidirectional linking to the current item, also any related items. And the way they've developed Hookmark, all the links are robust, which means they work even if the file gets moved or renamed. It's really smart. The links to files can even be shared with others who have access to the same file in a locally synced cloud folder, such as Dropbox, Git, or other version control systems, which makes it great for teamwork. You can, for instance, link a draft document to an outline, emails from co-authors, figures, your task lists, and so on. Hookmark really lets you glue it all together and give you that contextual experience that I've been talking about. No longer do you get distracted through menus or other pieces of applications. When you work on a project using Hookmark, you get just the files you need just for that project. It lets you stay in the zone and do your best work. Hookmark keeps you in the flow of your work. So to get 30% off the price of Hookmark, go to hookproductivity.com/MPU and use the code MacPowerUsers, all one word, no spaces. And remember, you can use that code at hookproductivity.com/MPU. Check this app out. It's very interesting and very powerful. And our thanks to Hookmark for their support of the Mac Power Users and Olive Relay. All right, so Reminders was the one I was really curious about going into this because I've been using OmniFocus for like 15 years, but I keep bumping into Reminders, and I keep hearing from Labs members who are like, hey man, Reminders is solid and I'm using it for everything. And I keep hearing from people who are leaving their paid task manager apps to go into Reminders. So I was super curious to see, what it looked like. And I discovered the same thing that I discovered with Notes, is that, Reminders has matured a great deal. Now, it's got lists and tags and smart lists. They have added the types of structures you need to set up an effective task management reminder system all right on the native app.
Yeah, when Reminders first shipped, it had this weird, like, scrolling index card UI, and everything was like letterpress, and it was very strange. It was a different time. And like Notes, at some point Apple got serious about it. And like Notes, it gets regular attention, right? There's usually something every release cycle that is pushing Reminders forward. I've gotten a couple of those myself. A couple of years ago, I went on a bit of a mission about the app icon badge and got what I wanted. So thank you, Apple Reminders team, for taking my feedback. But it has really come a long way, and in some really interesting ways. Apple's doing some things in Reminders that aren't super common in other apps. My favorite example of this is if you set up a groceries list, it will categorize things based on the type of food, which basically means it's the area of the grocery store most of the time, which is really cool. But they've also added categorization to other types of lists. You have a great example in the course of this where it's a list of things you would pack for a trip, and you tell it to categorize. It uses Apple Intelligence on the device, and it sorts them into those different categories. That's something that, yeah, other apps have some of those features, some of them don't. But instead of matching something like OmniFocus one for one, Apple's trying to find ways to make Reminders more useful and helpful to a broad set of users. And I think they've really come up with some clever stuff towards that goal.
Yeah, I mean, I really felt like this Reminders app is way more powerful than I expected.
Mm-hmm.
And the Siri natural language capture is just the best of any app I tried at any price in terms of just quickly getting something in with your voice. And as we record the show, Siri's in the midst of a brain transplant, and maybe that'll get better. But I can tell you today, as we record this show, there's nothing better. Like when you're driving down the road and you hit your CarPlay button and say, add such and such to my reminders list, it just happens.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't that the point, right? To
Yeah.
get things out of your mind into your system very easily, very easy to move them around. Another thing that they've done over the last few years is they've added subtasks and categories. So you've got like the ability to create Kanban boards within your task list. And that is a powerful feature that is not in a lot of apps. I mean, they have really kind of taken an opinionated approach to Reminders of adding features that are important to them.
Yeah, the ability to say, hey, remind me of this when I get home. I use that all the time in CarPlay, right? It's like usually for like silly stuff, right? Like I remember that I've got clothes in the dryer I need to get out. Or even just yesterday, I was out running some errands and I got an alert that the AirTag battery on my keys was low.
Yeah.
And I got back in the truck and I hit the button. I said, remind me when I get home to put a battery in my AirTag. And I pulled up to the house. I got the reminder and I could do it. It's those little fast interactions that I think Reminders really nails. And some of that is because it's first party, right? I mean, third parties can tie into Siri and do some things. Apple does have a bit of an advantage there, but it means this app is fantastic just for getting things out as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it has most of the features with deep integration. And I think for most users, that is plenty.
Yeah. My go-to example when people ask me about reminders is you can set an alert for the next time you text somebody. So if I say, hey, next time I'm texting with David, remind me to ask him about Chewbacca. I can have that in there. And then when I'm in messages and I go to our conversation, I get an alert. It says, hey, remind to ask David about Chewbacca. That's something no other app can do, but it is really helpful.
So what's your question about Chewbacca?
I mean,
he's from the planet Kashyyyk.
That's true.
Just in case you didn't know, right?
Yeah, I don't know. It was just an example.
He's a sweetheart.
Yes.
That's what I say.
Don't watch the Christmas special. That's our advice.
I've seen it.
Oh, me too. I can't unsee it.
I'm in a weird spot with Star Wars right now. I have to admit, I've kind of lost the thread recently.
I think they've lost the thread. I don't think it's just you.
Yeah. I went back like at New Year's, I'm going to go watch the original again and that'll make me feel good. But I don't know where I am with Star Wars. I never thought I'd say that. What's happening, Stephen?
I don't know. It's a weird time out there, man.
Yeah.
One thing that is also really cool in reminders is template projects. I've gotten into this a little bit for releases of Widgetsmith and Pedometer Plus. There's like things we need to do every time, right? And I'm trying to templatize that so I don't miss any of those things. And can you talk a little bit about what you can do with that and some other automation stuff in reminders?
I mean, one of the things I wanted to do is say, well, what can I do here to make the system work? I'm used to like OmniFocus, which has every feature. And one of the things that's important to me is repeating tasks. We all have them. Like, every Monday I try to record the Mac Power Users ads, and every Wednesday I try to work on next week's outline. And like, there's things we do repeatedly. And one of the solutions I came with, and I kind of explain a whole system in the course, but what if you had templated time increment projects? So like you have a weekly list, a monthly list, a quarterly list, and you just make those things and then you populate them and then you can integrate them into kind of a running list. You can move them around very easily. You can use categories to put them, across the week if you want. Like one of the methods I use is I made a category for each day of the week. And then you could just have kind of like a hot board of everything you want to do this week and move things around very easily. It looks good on iPad, phone, and even better on the Mac. And it was really fun experimenting with those templated list features to turn them into something very powerful. And it was a combination of kind of like the categories plus the repeating formulas. And, I honestly found that it's perfectly fine for me to do all of my work.
I think that stuff can be really, really powerful. I do worry sometimes in an app like Reminders that some people may come across those features and feel like it's not for them or it's too complicated. I think Apple does what they can to make that as simple as possible. But I do think if you have sort of repeating sets of tasks, or you want to use Reminders just as a checklist app, check some of this stuff out because, you basically take the same things on every trip, right? You kind of need the same essentials. Or for me, like the app releases, I'm doing the same type of work repeatedly, and I would just want to make sure that everything is done and in the right order. These things can really help you with that. I mean, the idea of an app like this, for me at least, is I want it out of my brain because my brain isn't trustworthy, right? But if it's in the app, it's going to be there and it's going to sync.
Yeah.
And that definitely goes for things that are repeating or things that I'm doing, more checklist type stuff. I don't know. I think it's great.
Yeah. And as a sharing destination, all these apps are just top notch. So you see anything on the internet you want to follow up on later, adding to reminders, adding to notes, putting it into a freeform board, all of that stuff is trivial. And then you kind of get the whole network effect of these applications. That's why I call it the Swiss Army knife suite, because suddenly you start getting things done with less friction, less trouble, less, bandwidth on your brain. And, these are free apps that everybody listening to this already has on their devices.
Yep.
Freeform for me was one of the most curious because, you and I did a whole show on it. I've been playing with it kind of in the background, but I wanted to dig deep on it. And, to be honest, there's not a ton of features in it. It's the most, new of these applications. But the idea of it, I kind of feel like I understand more now. It's an infinite canvas app for you to explore ideas. And I really came to appreciate it more in the process of building the field guide. Like one of the habits I've developed is I make a freeform board for something I'm thinking about or working on, like the field guide. And I'll just make that a full screen app on my giant 26-inch monitor. And I just scroll over to it and just, once in a while look at it, make a few changes. It really like jives with my whole idea of cooking ideas. And once you learn how it works, and I feel like they didn't do a good job of making it easy to understand. Like, well, you want to move it around, you hold the space bar down and you click, but like, who knows that, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a weird interaction.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, so, but once you learn the app, and that's kind of the goal of Field Guide, is to teach it to you, you actually can get quite adept at moving around in it. And, again, it's on all your devices. It, looks good on your iPad. You can even open it on your phone. And I really have come to appreciate Freeform more than I thought. One of the things I did growing out of this is I made this really cool Freeform base that has like all the stuff for the MacSparky kind of business, because I have a couple people helping me out. I've shared it with them. They can see exactly what their responsibilities are and what mine are. I can update it. Another thing I made was a cool like linear calendar, and I built it in Apple Notes, and it's just like a calendar where each month is one row. So it's like January from the 1st to the 31st stretched out. And then you just go through it. But then you can like map out big projects over the year and share it with the whole team. I just found a lot more uses for this application than I expected. One of the fun things I did in this section of the course is actually, because I think a lot of people are new to Freeform, is I made 5 or 6 videos of like, well, here's a use case and let me show you how you would build it. And that was a lot of fun.
And that's really cool. I mean, and like Notes, like that media layer on Freeform is great. You can bring in things from the other apps. But I remember when we did our episode, just how easy it was to take an image or take some other resource and bring it in. Like I'm not a thinker the way Freeform wants me to think. Like I think it's cool, but that's not really how I sit down and think through things.
Yeah.
But it's also great for documentation. I have used Freeform for that. Like let me lay out a network map or some sort of chain of events that need to happen. Like it doesn't just have to be ideation and tracking and thinking. You can use it kind of like maybe you would use OmniGraffle if you don't need the full power of that, or MindNode or something like that. It really has a little bit of everything in it, depending on kind of what you want.
Yeah, and like I'm a visual thinker so apps like this are right up my alley. I'm super excited. Apple, we're going to get into this later in the show, but Apple announced that that AirPin that you can write in Air with Vision Pro.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to be able to use Freeform like across the room with that, but I guess we'll see. That's for a future show. But I do like the idea of this stuff, like getting these Freeform boards up on a television or just giving me a way to interact with the ideas and let my brain make connections. That totally works for me. And so this app is right in my wheelhouse. They have not updated it as much as I would like to have them done in the years it's been out. It feels like it's a bit on a slow burn of all these apps. And I don't know why that is, but I think it was worth including because I think it's one of the more underrated and underused apps in the Apple Productivity Suite.
Yeah, honestly, when you first told me Freeform was part of this, I was a little surprised, but then it made sense. I had the same thought you just did. Like it works with these other apps. It's built in and free. And even though it is the youngest of them, and there's plenty of room to grow, like I think this is a tool Apple built for themselves, right? I think we talked about that on our episode when it first came out. It's like, this feels like something Apple wanted, so they built it. And maybe, I'm sure it's the least used of these 4 apps, but I am hopeful that they continue to improve it, because I think they're using it. And I think for a lot of folks, like a lot of people have tried a calendar app or a notes app, right? Freeform is different. I'm not sure how many people have tried a layout, infinite canvas visual tool like this.
Yeah.
And so if Apple can make it easier to understand and continue to improve it, I think the growth potential for Freeform is the highest out of any of these, but they got to get there, and they got to stay focused on it. And I hope that they do, because tools like this can be really powerful for people, and you may not even know it. You may not know you want a tool like this until you sit down and begin to use it and realize, like, oh my gosh, this clicks for me in a way that nothing else has. I think that potential is really strong there, but they gotta keep working on it.
Yeah, and there are like web services that also do this visual thinking paradigm, and I was seriously considering like subscribing to 1 or 2 of them, and sharing them with my team. And some of those apps do things Freeform doesn't do yet, but because it's integrated, because it's on all of my devices and all my team members are an Apple ecosystem, it's like the obvious choice. And like I find I really like it. Like at one point I was putting together a spreadsheet of workflows for everything I deliver as MacSparky. Like when I do a blog post, what are the steps and who's responsible for each step? And like when I used one of these third-party apps, they had a really nice looking kind of ethic to it, the design and the font and everything. But then I realized, adjusting some colors and fonts in Freeform, I got really close to what they had for free, and better syncing and better, multimedia support. So it's like, yeah, these apps are really worth checking out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you've done a great job with these, and I think you've really built the case in this course that you can do serious work in these apps, that they have serious features, and they've come so far. I mean, that's been like a topic on the show for so long that, these are serious apps, and they're getting regular updates. Not always the flashiest thing. Sometimes it's like stuff that people really need in tools like this. But yeah, I think you've killed it this time. I think people should 100% go check it out.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that as Apple gets better at Apple Intelligence, that they get even more conversant with each other, more powerful. And it seems to me like these are the obvious apps for Apple to really, put the pedal down on with Apple Intelligence and Siri updates. So I feel like these are only going to get better with time.
This episode of Mac Power Users is brought to you by Ecamm. If you're a Mac user who creates videos or podcasts, you need Ecamm. Ecamm Live is the all-in-one studio built exclusively for the Mac, so it looks, feels, and performs like a native pro app should. So whether you're live streaming, recording a podcast, or producing training videos, Ecamm gives you broadcast-level control with drag-and-drop simplicity. Switch cameras, share your screen, cue overlays, and control audio, all without ever leaving your Mac. Ecamm makes content faster and cleaner because all these tools work together. A lot of software in this realm is clunky and hard to use and definitely doesn't feel native on the Mac. But that's not true of Ecamm. It is awesome. And if you're a power user of Mac OS, Ecamm's going to fit right into your workflow. You can brand your show with titles, graphics, and lower thirds. You can also pull in guests for interviews or record multi-track audio for perfect post-production. And if you're into automation, and we are, Ecamm works beautifully with tools like the Stream Deck and Loopback, as well as many Mac tools you already know and love. And you can upgrade to Pro and unlock Ecamm for Zoom, which lets you feed your polished setup straight into Zoom meetings or webinars, share Zoom comments on screen, and even capture each participant's audio and video separately for easy post-production work. To get 1 month for free, go to ecamm.com/MPU and use the code MPU at checkout. That's 1 month free of Ecamm Live at Ecamm, ECAMM, ecamm.com/MPU. Our thanks to Ecamm for supporting the show and all of Relay. Okay, we're going to now totally change gears because there is some Apple stuff we wanted to talk about. First, the M5 was announced, and as we're recording this, reviews are out of the iPad Pro, the M5 Vision Pro, and the base MacBook Pro. Those are the three products that got it, and it seems like a solid, if not unexpected, update.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, it's a spec bump, but the M5 chip got a little better at the core process. The video and AI stuff, however, had a much bigger jump this year, and that's because they made some changes to the way it processes kind of the graphics cores and the AI support, and that is something of note.
Yeah, it's Apple Silicon is so interesting. We're 5 years into it now, almost exactly. And it's just been this regular drumbeat of 10%, 15%, 20% better. And yeah, if you have an M4, you should not upgrade to an M5, right? Like it just doesn't make any sense for almost anybody.
Yeah.
But if you're still on Intel, or interestingly, Apple has started comparing these to the M1, which is now 5 years old. Over time, the progress is meaningful. And yeah, the M5, the update is maybe not the most exciting thing in the world, but it's really important because Apple can continue to move forward. And that's what we wanted, right? We were frustrated when the MacBook Pro or the MacBook Air in particular wasn't updated because there wasn't something from Intel that Apple thought they could use or wanted to use.
I mean, I remember those days. It was like you'd wait a couple years or longer and it'd be like a 5% improvement. And you're like, well, what's the point?
Exactly. And so to see them continue just to make these incremental updates basically annually, not every product gets an annual update, but there's a new family out roughly every year. That's super encouraging. It's super encouraging to me that they still have seemingly plenty of gas in the tank when it comes to Apple Silicon. And that doesn't mean there aren't some changes. I think the biggest change in the M5 generation is each GPU core now has part of that is dedicated to neural engine type stuff. Apple had the neural engine from the beginning of these machines, from what was then called machine learning, but is AI, and that's still very important to Apple. They're still very proud of that. But a lot of that workload is GPU dependent and not necessarily lighting up the neural engine. And so now there are capacities inside the GPU for some of those tasks. And if you look at Federico's review in particular, Mac Stories, the software is not quite ready for that, but the hardware is there. And when Apple's frameworks and third-party tools are tuned up for this, I do think local AI stuff, which is how I prefer to run it. I don't want to send my data off. I don't want to use a data center somewhere. I'd like it local. That stuff is going to continue to improve. And the M5 is sort of a step on Apple's part, recognizing how these tools are really working in the broader world and adapting Apple Silicon to that. And that's very exciting.
I feel like Apple announced Apple Intelligence a year or two earlier than they wanted to.
Oh, yeah.
And, we've talked about that in the show prior, but I feel like you keep seeing evidence of this. And this is another example. It's like now the hardware is really getting tuned to Apple Intelligence and what they demand of it, and it's just like now the software is catching up. It's like if they had just been able to wait another year, but they were just getting, lambasted on Wall Street for not having a story. And Apple always keep secrets until the last minute. They want to give you that show, but they got kind of forced out of their comfort zone. And I think they announced it before it was ready. They released it before it was ready. But now all of a sudden, like the pieces are coming together.
I think so too. And it's going to be a process, right? Of hardware becoming more capable, software being written to take advantage of it. But that's really nothing new. I was talking to Jason Snell about this. It's like it's nothing new that software lags behind Apple's hardware. For a long time that was iPad OS itself, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this thing's a real computer inside, but it doesn't have the interface. And iPad OS 26 rights a lot of those wrongs. And now we have these neural accelerators that, right now most stuff isn't going to talk to them, but I think that will change rather rapidly. And that's it's a shift in their strategy a little bit in Apple Silicon, but I think it will prove to be an important one.
Yeah. So just going through the hardware, the M5 iPad Pro, they've got the 11 and the 13 inch again. If you're, off a recent model, you probably don't need an upgrade. A lot of people just don't need an iPad Pro, period, because they're not really doing the kind of work that they need it for. But if you are in the market for one, you can get the anti-glare coating now, which seems to be accepted as pretty good. And, it's the latest and the greatest. It's the most adept for Apple Intelligence as we're heading into a phase where Apple's going to increasingly have better software for that. So I think that's just a solid update. If you're coming off M1 or, if you're an iPad Pro user, if you need this or not. Another product they announced, it's interesting, is the MacBook Pro, and it's the M5 base MacBook Pro. It's always kind of a weird computer. It's hard to call it a MacBook Pro because it doesn't have the Pro or the Max chip in it, but it is a MacBook Pro from the exterior, and it has the better screen and some benefits that you don't get with a MacBook Air. Where does that computer kind of fit in your calculus when you're telling people what to get? It's an outlier, right?
Yeah, it is a bit of an outlier because it's got features that not everybody needs, right? And it comes with a price tag. But also those features are really nice, right? The screen is incredible. Much better than what you get on a cheaper device. It is in a bit of a weird zone, but I think nerdy people tend to overlook that. But I think if you got the money and things like the screen are important to you or your work, I think it's worthwhile. But for a lot of people, it's not, right? A lot of people are fine with what something like the Air can do.
I think of this computer as a MacBook Air Pro.
Yeah.
More than anything else. It's like if you're looking for MacBook Air performance, but you want a better screen, a built-in cooling system, things like that. But you're not you're not doing anything that requires the more powerful Pro and Max chips, which are not out yet, by the way. We're not expecting those till probably next year. Then this is the one for you. Money's not a big deal, but you don't need a super powerful Mac, but you do want the really cool screen. So MacBook Air is a bit low for you, not quite what you want. This is the one. And now you can get the most recent one.
Yep. I think that totally works. The screen is incredible, right? It's got HDMI. So it does have some of those nicer things.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm pretty happy with my, M3 MacBook Air, and and it just does what I need for what it is. The Mac Studio is where I do my hard work. And
sure.
And frankly, the iPad is becoming increasingly useful to me because they've made the operating system better. But yeah, I guess I should say I'm not buying any of these. I'm not doing any upgrades. No. I did get the pen that I talked about earlier in the show. I haven't got it yet, but I'm looking forward to trying that.
Yeah. I saw that announcement. I sent it to you. It was like, you're the person for this review.
Yes. Well, I've been talking about that thing. I want to try it.
Yeah.
In fact, so let's just switch over to the Vision Pro. We've heard a lot of rumors. We've heard like a non-pro Vision coming out, like a more economical one. And that seems like that's still on the drawing board. But they did upgrade the Vision Pro to the M5 chip. It's still the same price. It looks identical. There were rumors that it was going to be black instead of white, but none of that happened. It looks like the exact same one. It's got a faster processor in it, probably more ready for AI, slightly better at rendering, but they're the same displays. So that's not really that different. interestingly, you can't trade in your old one for the new one. That's a very, Apple usually gives you an option to do that. Not that I'm interested in. I'm very happy with my M2, but they're not even looking at this as an upgrade product. They're just, I think, saying, hey, if you're going to get a Vision Pro, we might as well give you the latest and greatest when you buy it for that much money.
Yeah. It's not fantastic. I mean, I think Apple should do whatever it can to keep Vision Pro customers happy, because there's not that many of them. And if there was anybody who would want the new one, like, you should make that easier for them if they're already a Vision Pro user. I really disagree with the lack of a trade-in program on the Vision Pro, but they must have their reasons. I'm sure they're economic in nature. In a lot of ways, the most interesting thing about the new Vision Pro is the dual knit band, which is really something that I think was a good change. So before this, you had the knit band, which is the big piece of cloth that went around the back of your head and had the knob for tightening it. Yeah. And then they had the other band that was much narrower, but it also went across the top of your head. And a lot of folks, including me, thought that neither of those were really a great fit, and came up or found third-party solutions to use two of the solo knit bands together. And that's basically what Apple has built here. A wide thing across the back of your head, a wider thing at the top of your head. You can adjust them independently. Even though there's one knob, it will adjust them independently. And it seems like all the reviews that I've seen, people are pretty happy with that.
Yeah. I mean, I still like what you turned me on to, the little doodad I bought off eBay.
Yep.
And I bought a second, knit band on the top. The thing I like about it is I've got wheels for up and down and forward and backward, when you adjust it. I use that all the time. As soon as I've never gone back to the old band since I got that. I think I've got the ideal version. This is kind of like that. It's less expensive because you don't have to buy two of them. And I probably would be just fine with the Apple one. But man, I'm very happy with my current setup.
Yeah.
They've also announced a release date for the Pin and also the PlayStation controllers that are supposed to allow you to kind of do more traditional virtual reality gaming. I'm going to get a set of those when they come out. We've talked about the Vision Pro a lot lately because of just content that we've had on the show. But I continue to be an advocate of it. I like it. I'm happy with it. I don't feel like I have a performance problem at all with my Vision Pro. It does everything I want from it plenty quick.
Yeah.
I suspect at some point in the future that, they'll get better at AI, and then maybe I'll feel that M2 lagging a bit, and I'll have to cross that, bridge when I come to it. But when I saw they were making M5, to me, I just took that as if you're buying, $3,500 product, it should not, in 2025, it should not have an M2 chip in it.
Yeah. And Apple doesn't want to keep making the M2 chip, right? They've moved on from that. And so this may be equal parts upgrade for features and upgrade for operations, Yeah,
and just kind of future proofing. And the other thing it tells me is that, hey, we haven't given up on this. We still think this is an important product. I mean, the interesting thing about this, and we've talked about it, is the whole idea, Apple's always had this theory of if you build it, they will come, right? Any hardware they make, they're going to get all the software they want.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just not the case. I talked during the main show today about how I want some more text editors to be in Vision. And I even wrote some friends who are making apps that, are text editors that you would think would be on Vision. And they wrote me back and says, hey, there's 12 people using the iPad version in Vision Pro,
Yeah.
And it's why would I do that? Yeah. And it's yeah, I guess you're right. And that is it. That's the big problem with this. It's not that the processor's too slow.
Yeah. The Vision Pro has the most chicken and egg problem of any platform Apple has. And I don't know how you break out of that cycle without drastically changing the product or its price. So I don't think the M5 moves the needle for Apple in terms of the popularity of the Vision Pro, but at least it's still getting some attention. And whatever comes next, whether it's a lighter Vision Pro that's cheaper or glasses with a camera and speakers, like whatever is next, will benefit from the Vision Pro and Vision OS. On Upgrade, they've talked about how the Vision Pro is really its most important job is to bring life to Vision OS. And what Apple is doing in that OS is extremely interesting. And that work will move forward in one way or another, whether or not 5 years from now, Apple's headset looks anything like this or not.
Yeah, agreed.
The other thing I wanted to mention and get your take on is iOS 26.1 Beta 4 and macOS, iPadOS. There's not a good way to call these, to write a headline for these OSs.
The 26s.
The 26s. I think we said class of 26 at some point. I need to get back to that maybe. But in display and brightness on iOS and iPadOS, or the appearance section in macOS, you'll find a new toggle that changes the opacity of liquid glass. So there's the clear look, which is how iOS 26 shipped this fall. And then there's a new tinted option, which the name doesn't make any sense because tinted is also like how you change your icon colors. I don't know. They're reusing the name in a way that I don't like. But tinted adds opacity and contrast. I've got a blog post about this. I'll have in the show notes. You can see this. It does not return it to iOS 18. Like, it still looks like iOS 26. It still moves like iOS 26, but it dials down some of those reflections and refractions. And particularly on the lock screen, you'll see it does make a big difference in terms of how things look. I've used it now. I mean, this news is about a day old as we record. I set it to tinted and used it all day yesterday. And I think I prefer the clear, even though there are issues with it in places. And maybe just because it's new and this will wear off, but it is fun. Like, it's fun to see the UI kind of bend and wrap around these buttons. And as a photo passes under it, yeah, sometimes I can't read it, but it looks cool. So I'm saying with clear. Have you gotten to play with this yet? Are you on the beta train at this point?
No, my phone is not on the beta train right now, but I just shipped in the labs a video I made of how to deliquify liquid glass, because a bunch of members were saying, hey, I don't really like this. So I went through and was playing with contrast, and now Apple's just added a little button.
Yeah.
And you tune it, fixes it for you. I even found the terminal commands, it's like, so I feel like, man, I missed the boat on this one. It came out right after I shipped this thing, but I think it's good that they did it, because there's a lot of people that, for one reason or another, maybe it's an accessibility thing or just they don't care for it. They want to turn the switch. You know me though, Stephen. I like the new and shiny.
Sure.
I like the effects, and I'm not going to be using this switch, but I'm glad it's there. So when people, write me and they're cranky about it, I can tell them now, oh, just throw the switch and you don't have to deal with that anymore.
Yeah. I think it's super interesting that it's not an accessibility option. It's in your display and appearance settings, the same place that light mode and dark mode are. And I think Apple's trying to pitch it as this is just a display option, like these other things, because they don't want to come out and say, look, this has been out a month, but it's not working. Who knows where this goes in the future, right? There's always, there are a lot of people who really hate liquid glass and like, oh, iOS 27 will just be the tinted view and the clear will go away. Like, I don't know. And I don't think Apple is waving the white flag on liquid glass quite yet, but this does give you the option if it doesn't work for you. And that's really interesting that it's the clear look is really what Apple's showing off. I mean, the movement and stuff I think is also really interesting, but to dial that back surely was a debate within the company and one that I would like to know everything about. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm leaving it clear. I think it's fun. I think it's cool looking, and we'll see where this ends up down the road.
I also have to say I laughed at your home screen picture. It's really cute.
Thank you. Yeah. Mary's looking at me, and it's very like blue and moody. I don't know. I had fun with it this time around.
Yeah,
so.
I know. Love it.
And those phone frames are cosmic orange. Look how good that is.
Yeah, look at that.
Looks good, right?
So, are you putting a case around it now at this point, or are you still in the bold orange?
I've got a Nomad case that I'm using because it's still shorts weather, but jeans weather is right around the corner. And once we're in jeans weather, the phone will be without a case.
Yeah, I had lunch with some friends over the weekend, and they're like, they're not super nerdy, but they know I like orange. They're like, Dave, I saw there's an orange iPhone. Are you going to get it? And I just yanked it out of my pocket, caseless, and passed it around the table. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, Mike Hurley already shattered his.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Mike, no. Oh no! Did he get Apple Care?
He did, yeah. So that it's getting swapped out. But he was out with their baby and with a stroller and everything. He just sort of lost track of it.
New dad.
I know.
New dad story, right?
Yep.
You got to master it. You know, when I realized I had pro level as a dad is when I figured out that I could put the remote in the left hand, then lay the baby across my left hand, and I could feed the baby a bottle with my right hand, but I could still change the channel. That's when I'm like, okay, you got this.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
All right. We're the Mac Power Users. Thanks, everyone, for checking out the Apple Productivity Suite Field Guide. If you get it, please do check it out. Hey, if you do get it also, I send you a link when you buy it with testimonials. I'm trying to be more professional about the way I do this stuff. If you could send me a testimonial, I'd love that too. You'll see it when you buy it. So thanks for checking it out. Thanks for listening along with me. It's been a fun journey. We are the Mac Power Users. You can find us at relay.fm/MPU. Today on More Power Users, I'm going to walk through kind of the nuts and bolts of how to build one of these things and how that's changed. Thank you to our sponsors at 1Password, Hookmark, and Ecamm, and we'll see you next time.